Christmas Eve at my aunt's house had always been a performance, and this year was no different. Pretending to be a CEO again? My cousin Emma said loudly across the living room, rolling her eyes. Keegan, seriously. Nobody important knows who you are. Her friends, visiting for the holiday, laughed on cue. I continued arranging cookies on a plate, my expression neutral. Uncle Steve's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He glanced at it, then his face went completely white. Fortune's 40 under 40. He read aloud, his voice strangled. The secretive founder transforming healthcare with a $12 billion empire. Emma's crystal glass of eggnog slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor, cream-colored liquid spreading toward the Christmas tree. The room went silent except for Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas, still playing from the speakers. I was 10 years old when I learned that Emma could do no wrong in our family's eyes. She was my aunt's daughter, 2 years older than me, and the undisputed golden child of the extended family. When Emma got a B+ on a test, my grandmother framed it. When I brought home straight A's and a letter from my teacher about my advanced placement in science, Grandma said, "That's nice, dear. Did you see Emma's dance recital photos?" Emma was everything the family valued. Outgoing, social, conventionally pretty, interested in the right things. I was the weird cousin who spent recess reading medical journals I'd borrowed from the library. "Why do you read that stuff?" Emma had asked me once when we were 12 and 14. She'd found me in the corner at a family barbecue, deep into an article about diagnostic imaging. "I want to understand how diseases are detected," I'd said. She'd laughed. "You're so weird, Tegan." Maybe I was. But I'd been fascinated by healthcare since I was young. Specifically by how inefficient and disorganized medical records were. I'd watched my grandfather struggle with his diabetes care, dealing with different doctors who couldn't access his full medical history, prescriptions that conflicted, test results that got lost. At 14, I'd sketched out a system for unified medical records. Nothing sophisticated, just flowcharts in a notebook showing how patient data could be centralized and shared securely. My parents had found the notebook. "That's creative," Dad had said absently. "Emma got lead in the school play. Isn't that exciting?" When I was 16, Emma got her driver's license and a brand new Lexus from her parents. The entire family had thrown a party. I'd gotten my license the same month and saved up $3,200 from 2 years of part-time work to buy a used Honda Civic. Nobody mentioned it. At 18, I'd gotten a full scholarship to a prestigious university for biomedical engineering. Emma had gotten into a decent state school with average grades, and my aunt and uncle had thrown a graduation party for 50 people, talking about how proud they were of their daughter's accomplishments. At my graduation party, just immediate family, my mother had spent 20 minutes discussing Emma's sorority rush process. I'd stopped expecting different after that. In college, I'd focused on healthcare technology. I'd worked with 3 different research labs, published 2 papers on data security in medical systems, and graduated with a 3.97 GPA. I'd been recruited by 2 major healthcare tech companies. I'd turned them both down to start my own company. I was 22 years old. I'd called it MedConnect. The concept was simple but revolutionary. A unified platform where patient medical records could be securely stored, instantly accessed by authorized providers and updated in real time. No more lost test results. No more conflicting prescriptions. No more patients having to remember their entire medical history at every appointment. The first 2 years were brutal. I'd lived in a studio apartment that cost $650 a month, eaten ramen for dinner most nights, and worked 18-hour days coding the platform myself. My co-founder, Dr. Sarah Chin, a physician who understood the medical side, worked for equity because neither of us could afford salaries. At family gatherings during those years, when people asked what I did, I'd say, "I'm working on a healthcare startup." The response was always some version of, "That's nice. Emma just got promoted to assistant manager at the boutique." Our breakthrough came in year 3 when a small hospital system in Oregon agreed to pilot our platform. Within 6 months, they'd reduced medical errors by 43%, decreased patient readmission rates by 31%, and saved $2.8 million in administrative costs. The data was undeniable. By year 4, we had 12 hospital systems using MedConnect. By year 5, we had 94 hospital systems across 23 states. We'd raised $15 million in series of funding, though Sarah and I still owned 81% of the company combined. By age 27, MedConnect was processing medical records for 8.4 million patients. Our annual revenue was $94 million. The company was valued at $850 million. Meanwhile, Emma had gotten married to Tyler, a pharmaceutical sales rep who made $95,000 a year. They'd bought a house in the suburbs with help from Emma's parents for the down payment. Emma had moved from assistant manager to manager at the boutique, making $52,000 annually. At every family gathering, this was the headline: Emma and Tyler's anniversary, Emma's promotion, Emma's plans to start a family, Emma's kitchen renovation. When anyone asked about me, I kept my answers brief. Work's good. Still in healthcare tech. Keeping busy. They'd nod, bored, and return to discussing Emma. What they didn't know was that by age 30, MedConnect had gone from 94 hospital systems to 847 hospital systems. We'd expanded into 49 states and were processing medical records for 47 million patients, nearly 15% of the U.S. population. Our annual revenue was $2.3 billion. The company was valued at $12 billion. $12 billion. We'd received acquisition offers from every major tech company, Google, Apple, Microsoft, ranging from $8 billion to $15 billion. I turned them all down. MedConnect was saving lives. Literally. Our platform had been credited with preventing an estimated 340,000 medical errors annually and saving approximately $8.7 billion in healthcare costs. I'd been approached by Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg. Every major business publication wanted to profile the company. I'd declined all interviews for 6 years, preferring to keep the focus on the work rather than on me personally. Until 3 months ago, when my board had convinced me that raising our public profile would help with our international expansion plans. I'd agreed to one profile, Fortune's 40 Under 40 list. The journalist had been thorough. She'd interviewed our clients, toured hospital systems using our platform, spoken with doctors and nurses about the impact on patient care. She'd reviewed our financials, our growth metrics, our technology. She'd asked about my family. They must be incredibly proud. I paused. My family and I have different priorities. I built this company to solve a problem that affected my grandfather. Whether anyone else notices is secondary to whether it works. That quote had apparently made it into the article. The list had published this morning. I hadn't told my family, they didn't read Fortune magazine, and I preferred my privacy. I'd driven to my aunt's house for the annual Christmas Eve gathering because my mother had insisted, and because I'd promised myself I'd try one more time to be present for family occasions. That decision was looking increasingly questionable. I'd arrived at my aunt's house at 6 p.m. as requested, carrying homemade cookies I'd baked that morning between reviewing Q4 reports and approving our expansion budget for Europe. Emma had opened the door wearing a designer dress that probably cost $800. Tegan, you made it. She'd hugged me, then stepped back to look at my outfit, jeans and a cashmere sweater. Oh, very casual. It's a family dinner, I'd said. Right. Well, come in. Everyone's here. Everyone was indeed there. My parents, Emma's parents, Aunt Linda and Uncle Steve, my grandparents and Emma's husband Tyler, plus 3 of Emma's friends from college who were visiting for the holidays. The living room was decorated like a magazine spread. 12-foot tree, coordinated ornaments, professional garland. Emma loved hosting, loved the attention that came with it. Tegan, my mother had said. You're late. I checked my watch. It's exactly 6. Emma had everything ready at 5:30. We've been waiting. I'd apologized and headed to the kitchen with my cookies. That's when Emma's friend Madison had said, loud enough for me to hear, "So that's the cousin who thinks she's important?" Emma had laughed. She has this whole thing where she claims she runs a company. It's adorable, really. I'd arranged the cookies on a plate, my jaw tight but my expression neutral. Back in the living room, Tyler had been holding court about his job. Closed 3 major accounts this quarter. My commission alone was $40,000. Not bad for 3 months of work. Everyone had been impressed, congratulating him, asking questions. Uncle Steve had turned to me. What about you, Tegan? How's your little startup going? It's going well, I'd said simply. Emma had jumped in. She's still doing that healthcare thing. Medical records or something. I don't really understand it. It sounds complicated, Grandma had said, not unkindly but clearly uninterested. Emma, Aunt Linda had said, show everyone the photos from your promotion dinner. Emma had pulled out her phone, and the next 20 minutes had been dedicated to looking at photos of Emma's celebration at a nice restaurant, Emma's new business cards, Emma's corner of the store with her name on a plaque. Then Emma's friend Jennifer had said, Emma, didn't you say Tegan pretends to be a CEO? The room had gone awkwardly quiet. Emma had laughed, slightly embarrassed. I mean, she has this thing where she calls herself a CEO, but it's not a real company. It's a startup. One of those tech things that'll probably fail. I'd taken a sip of water. Pretending to be a CEO again? Emma had continued, emboldened by her friend's laughter. Tegan, seriously. Nobody important knows who you are. You're not Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. You can't just call yourself a CEO and expect people to take you seriously. Madison had nodded. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. Like those people who call themselves entrepreneurs, when they're really just unemployed. I'd set down my water glass very carefully. I see. Don't be offended, Emma had said quickly. We're just saying, be realistic about your situation. Not everyone can be successful. Some people need to just find a normal job. That's when Uncle Steve's phone had buzzed on the coffee table. He'd glanced at it, a news alert. His face had drained of all color. What? Aunt Linda had asked. Steve, what's wrong? He'd stared at his phone screen like it was showing him something impossible. Fortune's 40 under 40. He'd read aloud, his voice strange. The secretive founder transforming healthcare with a $12 billion empire. Emma's eggnog had slipped from her hand. What they didn't know, what Emma had no concept of, was that MedConnect had become the backbone of American healthcare infrastructure. Our platform was now used by 847 hospital systems, 4,200 urgent care centers, 67,000 private practices, and 340 specialty care facilities. We processed medical records for 47 million patients. Every day, our system handled 2.3 million data transactions, 847,000 prescription verifications, and 94,000 emergency department visits. The impact was measurable and profound. In hospitals using MedConnect, medical errors decreased by an average of 41%. Patient readmission rates dropped by 28%. Emergency department wait times decreased by 34%. Administrative costs fell by an average of $3.2 million annually per facility. We'd prevented an estimated 340,000 medical errors since launch. Our system had saved an estimated 18,000 lives by ensuring doctors had access to critical patient history during emergencies. The technology itself was sophisticated. We'd developed AI-driven systems that could predict potential drug interactions, flag concerning patterns in patient data, and alert providers to missing information that might affect care. We'd built quantum-encrypted security protocols that had never been breached, not once in 8 years. I'd personally overseen every major technical decision. I still reviewed code. I still met with hospital administrators to understand their needs. I still took calls from doctors who had suggestions for improvements. The company employed 2,400 people. Our headquarters was a 120,000 square foot facility I designed specifically to foster collaboration between our medical advisors, our engineering teams, and our security specialists. My co-founder Sarah and I each owned 40.5% of the company. At a $12 billion valuation, my personal stake was worth $4.86 billion. Combined with my investment portfolio and other holdings, my net worth was $5.1 billion. $5.1 billion. I'd made the Forbes 30 under 30 list at age 26. Forbes Healthcare list at 28. Now at 32, Fortune's 40 under 40. The Fortune profile had been extensive. They'd visited hospital systems using our platform, interviewed doctors about the impact on patient care, analyzed our growth trajectory and market dominance. They'd included a quote from the Chief Medical Officer of Johns Hopkins: MedConnect is the most significant advancement in healthcare data management in the last 50 years. It's saving lives every single day. A quote from Mayo Clinic CTO: we evaluated 17 different platforms before choosing MedConnect. Nothing else came close to their security, functionality, and ease of use. The article detailed my background. Starting the company at 22, bootstrapping for 2 years, the breakthrough with the Oregon pilot program, the explosive growth that followed. There was a sidebar about my philanthropy. $240 million donated to medical research, $85 million to healthcare access programs for underserved communities, $52 million to STEM education for women. And there were photographs. Me in our headquarters reviewing code with our engineering team. Me meeting with hospital administrators. Me presenting at a medical technology conference to 12,000 attendees. The article had a section titled, "The Secretive Founder," that discussed my avoidance of publicity. Tegan Morrison has built a $12 billion empire while maintaining almost complete anonymity. She rarely gives interviews, avoids industry conferences unless presenting technical content, and has turned down acquisition offers that would have made her one of the wealthiest women in America. "The work is what matters," Morrison told Fortune. "Everything else is noise." That article was now displayed on Uncle Steve's phone, 3 feet from Emma's shocked face. Uncle Steve turned his phone around so everyone could see the screen. The Fortune magazine cover showed my photograph, professional headshot in a white blazer, standing in what was clearly a modern office space with floor-to-ceiling windows. "Fortune's 40 under 40. The innovators changing the world," he read. Number 3. Tegan Morrison, 32, founder and CEO of MedConnect. Emma's hand went to her throat. That can't be." Uncle Steve was scrolling frantically. Morrison's MedConnect platform is used by 847 hospital systems nationwide, processing medical records for 47 million patients. The company generates $2.3 billion in annual revenue and is valued at $12 billion. Morrison's personal stake, 40.5%, worth approximately $4.86 billion. My mother dropped her wine glass. It didn't shatter, it hit the carpet, but red wine spread across the white fibers like blood. $4 billion? Aunt Linda's voice was barely a whisper. Uncle Steve kept reading, his voice shaking. Morrison founded MedConnect at age 22 with $8,000 in savings and a vision to revolutionize healthcare data management. Today, her platform prevents an estimated 340,000 medical errors annually and has been credited with saving approximately 18,000 lives. Grandma sat down heavily on the couch. "Tegan, this is you." "Yes, Grandma." Emma was scrolling on her own phone now, her face getting paler by the second. There are articles everywhere. Forbes, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal. The Journal did a profile 6 months ago titled, "The Billionaire Nobody Knows." Billionaire. Tyler repeated faintly. Morrison's net worth is estimated at $5.1 billion, Emma read, her voice cracking, making her the youngest self-made female billionaire in healthcare and one of the 50 wealthiest self-made women in America. Madison, who'd called me embarrassing 20 minutes ago, was staring at me with her mouth open. Jennifer was frantically Googling on her phone. "Oh my God." She testified before Congress about healthcare data security. She's been keynote speaker at medical conferences. She's on the board of directors for 3 major hospital systems. "There's a TED Talk," Madison said faintly, holding up her phone. "From 2 years ago. Reimagining Healthcare Through Technology. It has 8.4 million views." Uncle Steve had found more articles. This interview in Bloomberg from last year. They asked her about her family. She said. He paused, reading silently, then continued. "My family has always been supportive in their own way, but they never understood what I was building. That's okay. I built it for the patients, not for recognition." Emma made a choking sound. My father, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. "Tegan, why didn't you tell us?" "I did tell you, Dad. Multiple times. I told you I was starting a healthcare company. I told you we had our first hospital client. I told you we were expanding. Every time, you'd nod and then ask me if I'd heard about Emma's latest accomplishment. But you never said." Mom trailed off. "Said what? That the company was worth billions? That I was on Forbes lists? That I was testifying before Congress?" I kept my voice calm. "Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was pretending to be important?" Emma flinched. Tyler had his phone out, reading something. "Honey, he said to Emma, his voice strange. My company uses MedConnect. The entire pharmaceutical industry uses it for prescription verification. I've been using your cousin's platform for 3 years. Emma looked like she might be sick. The doorbell rang. Aunt Linda answered it automatically, still in shock. It was a delivery person holding an enormous floral arrangement. Delivery for Tegan Morrison? That's me, I said. Sign here, please. He handed me a tablet. I signed and took the flowers. A stunning arrangement that must have cost $500. The card read, "Congratulations on Fortune 40 Under 40. You're changing the world. The Board of Directors, Johns Hopkins Hospital." Everyone stared at the flowers. Johns Hopkins. Grandma whispered. The Johns Hopkins? My phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. Text messages were pouring in. Board members, hospital CEOs, medical directors, all congratulating me on the Fortune feature. One text was from Dr. Sarah Chin. The Fortune effect is real. Website traffic up 840%. 17 new hospital systems requesting demos. You broke healthcare. Emma's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then her face went even paler. Mom, she said weakly. Your friend Karen just texted. She's asking if the Tegan Morrison in Fortune magazine is your niece. Then my mother's phone. Then my father's. Then Aunt Linda's. Everyone in my family's social circle had seen the article. Uncle Steve was still scrolling through articles. There's a profile in Forbes from 2 years ago. They interviewed her hospital clients. The CEO of Cleveland Clinic said. He paused, reading. Tegan Morrison has single-handedly transformed how we approach patient care. Her platform has saved countless lives. She's a visionary. The CEO of Cleveland Clinic knows your name, my father said, as if testing whether the words made sense when spoken aloud. Stat. We have an enterprise contract with them. $47 million annually. Emma made a sound like she'd been punched. The immediate consequences were visceral. Emma had to excuse herself to the bathroom. We could hear her crying through the door. Madison and Jennifer looked like they wanted to disappear. They'd called me embarrassing, implied I was unemployed, laughed at Emma's mockery. Now they were sitting in the living room of someone who was worth more than their entire extended families combined. We didn't know, Madison said weakly. I didn't respond. Tyler pulled me aside. Tegan, I owe you an enormous apology. I've been dismissive of you for years. I thought Emma was the successful one in the family and you were just struggling to make something work. I was completely wrong. Thank you for saying that. Can I ask? He hesitated. Why didn't you correct us? Why let us think you were running some small failing startup? I did correct you. Multiple times. None of you listened. Eventually I stopped trying. He nodded slowly. That's fair. That's more than fair. The escalating consequences came over the next 48 hours. Christmas Day was supposed to be at my parents' house. I didn't go. I sent a text, spending the holiday alone this year. Need some space to process. My mother called 17 times. I didn't answer. Emma sent a long message. Tegan, I don't even know what to say. I'm horrified by how I treated you. I said you were pretending to be important. I said nobody knew who you were. I mocked you in front of everyone and you're literally one of the most important people in healthcare. I don't know how to apologize for something this terrible. I'm so sorry. I didn't respond immediately. Aunt Linda called. Tegan, sweetie, we had no idea. We're so proud of you. Your uncle is telling everyone about your success. Is he? I asked quietly. Because 48 hours ago he asked about my little startup, with that tone people use when they're being polite about something they consider a failure. Silence on the line. I need time, Aunt Linda. I'll reach out when I'm ready. The final consequences manifested when the social dynamics completely collapsed. Emma's friends, who'd mocked me at Christmas Eve, tried to connect with me on LinkedIn. I declined their requests. Madison sent a message. I'm so sorry about what I said. I was completely out of line. I'd love to take you to lunch and hear about your work. I deleted it without responding. Emma's boutique hosted an event and the local newspaper covered it. Someone in the comments section wrote, "Isn't the owner related to Tegan Morrison, the billionaire CEO? Talk about different levels of success in one family lol." Emma called me crying. People are comparing us. They're saying I'm a failure compared to you. Emma, you're not a failure. You're a store manager. That's a legitimate accomplishment. But you spent years making me feel like I was nothing because my success didn't look like yours. Now you know how that feels. That's not fair. Isn't it? She hung up. Uncle Steve's golf buddies asked him about me constantly. Your niece is the MedConnect CEO? Why didn't you say anything? I didn't know, he had to admit repeatedly. The response was always some version of, how could you not know your own niece was a billionaire? The worst came when Aunt Linda's book club decided to do a feature on local success stories. They wanted to highlight me as a hometown hero. Aunt Linda had to explain that we weren't currently speaking. Why not? Her friends asked. She had no good answer. 6 weeks after Christmas, I agreed to meet Emma for coffee. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, weight loss, none of her usual polish. Thank you for seeing me, she said immediately. I nodded. I've been in therapy, she said. Since Christmas. Trying to understand why I treated you that way. Why I needed to believe you were less successful than me. And what did you learn? That I was jealous. Not of your money, I didn't know about that. But of your confidence. Your independence. The way you didn't need anyone's approval. I've spent my whole life needing approval, needing to be the favorite, needing everyone to think I was special. You never needed any of that. I sipped my coffee. No, I didn't. I said terrible things, Tegan. I called you a pretender. I mocked you in front of my friends and our entire family. And you were saving lives. Literally saving lives. While I was worried about being promoted to manager of a boutique. Your work is valuable too, Emma. But I didn't think yours was. That's the problem. I dismissed what you'd built because I didn't understand it. Because it didn't fit my definition of success. We sat in silence. What do you need from me? Emma asked finally. I need you to understand that I'm not your competition. I never was. I was building something completely separate from your life, and you treated it like a personal insult that I dared to call myself a CEO. You're right. I need you to understand that success isn't one thing. It's not just titles and salaries and houses in the right neighborhoods. I built something that matters, that helps people, that saves lives. That should have been worth respecting, even if you didn't understand the technical details. It absolutely should have been. And I need you to understand that I'm not interested in performing for the family anymore. If we rebuild our relationship, it's going to be because we genuinely care about each other's lives. Not because we're cousins and we're supposed to. She nodded, wiping tears away. I want to rebuild it. I really do. Not because you're famous now, but because I miss having a relationship with you that isn't based on competition. Then show me. Over time. Don't tell me you've changed, show me. I will, she said. I promise I will. 2 months later, I had dinner with my parents. We've been in therapy too, Mom said. Trying to understand how we missed something so fundamental about your life. You didn't miss it, I said gently. You chose not to see it. There's a difference. Dad nodded slowly. You're right. We chose to focus on Emma because her success made sense to us. Yours was abstract, technical, harder to brag about at dinner parties. So we dismissed it. And now? I asked. Now we're trying to actually listen, Mom said. Can you tell us about your work? Really tell us, not just the brief answers you've learned to give. So I did. I spent an hour explaining MedConnect, the technology, the impact, the challenges, the victories. They asked questions, real questions, and listened to my answers. It wasn't perfect. You can't erase 30 years of dismissal with one dinner. But it was a start. 3 months after the Fortune article, Emma invited me to lunch. She'd brought her laptop. I did something, she said nervously. I want to show you, but I'm worried you'll think it's weird. Show me. He turned the laptop around. On the screen was an online course catalog. She'd enrolled in a technology fundamentals course. I realized I dismissed your work partly because I didn't understand it, she said. So I'm learning. Not to become a developer or anything. Just to understand your world better. To be able to have real conversations with you about what you do. I felt something crack in my chest. Emma, that's really thoughtful. I'm trying, she said simply. I know I hurt you. I know one course doesn't fix that. But I'm trying to be someone worthy of being your cousin. We had lunch. We talked about her work too. Really talked, with me asking genuine questions about retail management and customer service and employee development. Her work had value. I'd always known that. I just wished she'd extended the same courtesy to mine. At the end of lunch, she handed me an envelope. What's this? A donation receipt. I donated to one of your healthcare access programs. Not a lot. I can't afford what you can afford, but $5,000. I wanted to support something you built. I opened the envelope. It was real. She donated to MedAccess, our program providing free platform access to rural hospitals and underserved communities. Thank you, I said and meant it. Because here's what I learned. Success built in silence is still success, even when your own family calls it pretending. I built a $12 billion empire while my family thought I was running a failing startup. The revelation didn't change what I'd accomplished. It just changed what they could no longer ignore. And now, running my company, saving lives through technology, rebuilding relationships on my terms, I realized the most important thing. I never needed them to see me as important. I just needed to know I was doing important work. Everything else was just noise.